If you hadn't heard of national parks on the air, then you're probably not a ham radio operator. I am one, KC5CW, and my wife and I went to the Virgin Islands recently. Flying from Miami to St. Croix will take about 2.5 hours. Once you're there, if you go to the east end of the island, you'll find Point Udall, the easternmost piece of land on a U.S. territory. Suitcase DX was great from the back of the hotel room. Not much beats a vertical antenna on the edge of saltwater. But I was here for relaxation, and for me, that meant national parks on the air. Here I am setting up at Christiansted National Historic Site in downtown St. Croix. I wanted to work all the parks on the island multiple times, so I quickly went to Salt River Bay National Park, which is where Christopher Columbus landed on his second voyage to the New World. Okay, I have to admit, I love being DX because of the pileups. Check this one out. Delta Gulf 1, Yokohama Bravo November, 5959, over. Roger, roger, you're 59. Thank you for the 55, QRZ. Okay, the Sierra Alpha Bravo again.
Whiskey Alpha 3, Lima Alpha Bravo.
Whiskey Alpha 3, Lima Alpha Bravo, 59.
59, Pennsylvania, thank you.
In addition to ham radio, there are some other hams on the island, and we met one of them here. Check this out. This is Jim the Pig drinking an O'Doul's that I just gave him. And it's quite the scene. If you ever go to St. Croix, you should really find this bar. It's near the rainforest.
That's hilarious.
And buy an O'Doul's for the pig. It's only $1. We couldn't stop there. We had to tack forward into the trade winds on our way to Buck Island Reef National Monument. Part of this trip, I actually live streamed on the Facebook group page for the ARL National Parks on the Air site, and people really enjoyed following me on APRS, following my social media posts, and of course getting me in their logs for these rare DX national parks. The ether was calling. Go activate another national park, Virgin Islands National Park. With the help of some rum runners, we took off. Yep, floats and wheels. This plane lands anywhere. Goodbye, St. Croix, and hello, St. Thomas. Now we had to find a ferry to get us over to St. John, where the Virgin Islands National Park is. I'd like to take a minute now to give some tips to potential activators of national parks. It may start out really cool like this. Okay, kilowatt 1 radio Oscar. And then you realize you really should have checked in with the officer at the visitor center and not the volunteers. I quickly found out that I had set up in a really high traffic area that was just in one of their low spells. So I packed everything up and hiked up the hill to a much more secluded area that still had a good view of the bay. Another tip would be to run APRS. Now, in the U.S. Virgin Islands, there are not RF digipeaters on each island, so I ran APRS on my iPhone. By doing that, I was able to give the chasers a almost live view of where I was on the park, whether I was in the park or at the hotel. And trust me, chasers were following me from places I ate, places I spent the night, and I had no problem with that because it was like I brought a whole family of hams along with me. I had a ham in Nebraska call the hotel that he saw me stopping at. He figured that that's where I was staying. He called the hotel and had them send me a note to give him a call. He had to unplug for thunderstorms in the area, and so he was hoping that I would activate the national park the next morning, which I was, and I was able to get him on the phone the next morning, and he was able to find me after driving an hour to a friend of his who had a big contest station, and I got him in the log. The connections I made through both social media, constant updates, putting pictures with my posts, and having APRS really went a long way in creating just a full featured de-expedition almost like experience for both me and the chasers. Okay, I'm back. This is KC5CW stroke Kilo Papa 2 activating Buck Island off the coast of St Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands, listening 5 up. Calling now, all stations, call now.
Whiskey 8, Officer Mike. Whiskey 8, off your mic.
Okay, this is my last tip. If you're going to be somewhere that's going to generate a huge pileup, band conditions are just awesome, and it starts to become hard for the chasers to hear you respond to them. So by working split, you can tell all of the chasers up 5 or down 5. In this case, I said up 5 to tell all the chasers that I'm listening up 5 kilohertz from the frequency I was transmitting on. This separated all of my calls back to people to let them know who I was calling from the 100 or so chasers that I had calling for me. This allowed all of the chasers a much clearer view or signal from me to know who I was talking to. And it didn't always start that way. Sometimes I would start out slowly and then it became this huge pileup. And so I would say, okay, chasers, I'm moving to split. I'm going to start listening 5 up. And then I just pushed the split button. I already had it set up in my radio. And it became a very easy exercise to handle really large pileups when I was at a really cool place like Buck Island. So that's my last tip. I hope some of this video helps others that do national parks on the air, and I hope it inspires some people to actually do national parks on the air, whether it's activating or chasing. It was a serious blast, a lot of fun. Over 600 QSOs and a lot of new friends on the air. Anyway, 73, hope you enjoyed it.